Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Imagine holding in your hand a tiny coin, a simple 1-cent piece from 1962, and realizing that its value today is not just a cent, not even a few dollars, but an astonishing $715 million, making it one of the most expensive coins ever discussed in the world of numismatics. And the story behind why this coin has reached such incredible heights is packed with mystery, history, errors, and fascinating possibilities that collectors and historians continue to debate with passion and awe, because when you consider how something as ordinary as a penny minted more than 6 decades ago could carry with it the kind of life-changing fortune that surpasses mansions, rare jewels, and iconic art, it begins to feel like stepping into a world where history, chance, and rarity collide in the most remarkable way possible. And the 1962 1-cent coin exemplifies this perfectly, since although billions of pennies were struck that year, only a few with breathtaking mistakes or anomalies have surfaced to redefine what it means to own a piece of American history. For example, the possibility of double dies on the obverse, where Lincoln's face seems to echo in shadowy outlines, or the motto "In God We Trust" appears in doubled thickness, gives collectors chills as they compare surfaces under magnification. And then there are theories about off-center strikes, where the design drifts away from the planchet rim, producing a bizarre but beautiful misalignment that alone can add thousands if not millions to the value. And others whisper of planchet errors involving wrong metals, suggesting that perhaps a few rare 1962 cents were accidentally struck on experimental silver or leftover bronze compositions not meant for circulation, and such a twist would transform what appears to be a humble coin into an irreplaceable relic. Furthermore, the coin in question, that commands the staggering $715 million price tag, is believed to combine several of these errors together, a convergence of anomalies so rare that its very existence pushes the boundaries of belief, yet the passion of numismatists ensures that it is studied under microscopes, weighed to the fraction of a gram, analyzed for metallic consistency, and compared against other legendary coins like the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die. And while those coins are world famous, they pale when stacked against the astronomical figure assigned to this 1962 cent, which now stands as a beacon of numismatic wonder, proof that history and error can elevate a face value of 1 cent into wealth beyond imagination. And what captivates collectors even more is the flawless preservation of this coin, as if time itself shielded it from scratches, corrosion, and wear, leaving behind lustrous surfaces and sharp edges that defy its age. And when one combines the mystery of its origin with the beauty of its condition and the undeniable pull of rarity, the $715 million valuation starts to make sense. Not only as a financial figure but as a cultural statement about how much humans value history, mistakes, and uniqueness. And as experts argue about whether such coins should be placed in museums, private collections, or even auctioned publicly, the legend of the 1962 penny continues to grow, drawing in new generations of enthusiasts who dream of checking their pocket change or inherited jars of coins and stumbling upon such a miracle. And every detail, from the thickness of the rim to the clarity of the mint mark to the way light reflects off its coppery surface, becomes a clue in unraveling the mystery of why this coin is worth more than entire skyscrapers or fleets of luxury cars. And if you think about the journey of this coin, from a minting press in 1962 to the present day where it has been hailed as a treasure worth hundreds of millions, you realize that it carries not just monetary value but also a story about chance, human error, and the fragile line between ordinary and extraordinary. And that is what makes the tale of the 1962 1-cent coin endlessly fascinating, because in a world filled with digital transactions, cryptocurrencies, and paperless wealth, a simple copper piece reminds us that tangible history can still shock the imagination and stir desire. And as we dive deeper into numismatic lore, we see how collectors worldwide cherish the thrill of discovery, the possibility that something as tiny as a penny could hold secrets untold. And the 1962 penny, worth $715 million, stands at the pinnacle of this dream, urging everyone to take a closer look at their change, to imagine what stories might be hidden in plain sight, to recognize that the value of a coin is not just in its metal but in its journey, its errors, its survival, and its symbolism. And when we tell the story of this coin, we are not only talking about wealth but also about history's accidents becoming humanity's treasures. And that is why this single cent has become the ultimate representation of big money in coin history, so if you found this story fascinating and want to hear more about the rarest and most valuable coins ever known, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the chance to discover how small change can turn into life-changing fortune. Next, 1978 1-cent coin. USA coin. Have you ever imagined that something as small and ordinary as a penny sitting in your pocket or tucked away in a jar could secretly be worth more than entire empires? That one single cent minted in the United States in 1978 could hold a face value not of 1 cent but a jaw-dropping record-shattering $713 million, making it one of the most unbelievable stories in coin collecting and numismatic history. And today we dive into the captivating world where common coins transform into treasures beyond imagination. And before we unravel this mind-blowing mystery, make sure to like this video right now and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a chance to learn about life-changing discoveries that could be hiding in plain sight, because what you're about to hear is not just a story of copper and mint marks but of rarity, errors, human mistakes, history, passion, and the sheer thrill of knowing that something so small could rewrite the entire definition of value and wealth. Imagine for a moment you're casually sorting through some old coins, maybe a jar on the shelf or a forgotten box inherited from family, and suddenly you spot a 1978 1-cent coin, and at first glance it looks normal. Lincoln facing right with the familiar words "I and God We Trust" arched above his head, liberty stamped at the left, and the date 1978 neatly struck at the right, and the tiny mint mark just beneath it, indicating whether it came from Denver, San Francisco, or Philadelphia. And you think nothing of it, because after all, millions upon millions of pennies were struck in 1978, with Philadelphia alone minting hundreds of millions and Denver pushing out even more, and San Francisco contributing proof coins for collectors. Yet hidden within those oceans of copper-plated coins exists the rarest, most valuable, most extraordinary example ever struck, a single 1978 1-cent coin that, through an unimaginable combination of errors, anomalies, provenance, and sheer historical importance, rose from being a coin worth just a penny into an artifact appraised and valued at a face-blazing record of $713 million, making it a legend whispered about in hushed tones among collectors, a dream find for treasure hunters, and a symbol of how history often hides its most dazzling treasures in plain sight. The story begins with the composition of the 1978 penny, because in those years prior to 1982, pennies were still made primarily of 95% copper and 5% zinc, unlike the cheaper zinc based cents that came later, and each copper cent already held a bit more intrinsic metal value compared to modern coins. But in the case of this particular specimen, its story did not end at composition, because minting errors and striking mistakes at the US Mint have always fascinated collectors, and occasionally certain coins escape quality control, bearing unusual misalignments, double strikes, off-center strikes, planchet errors, die cracks, broad strikes, and transitional errors that turn them from ordinary into extraordinary. Yet this 1 cent of 1978 carried not one, not two, but a cascade of compounding anomalies that made it the stuff of legend. First, it bore a double die obverse so strong that Lincoln's profile appeared ghost-like, layered in a shadowy outline with the motto "I and God We Trust" visibly doubled, liberty spread apart, and the date 1978 showing dramatic doubling so intense you could read the digits as if they were stamped twice. Then, to add another twist, the coin was struck on the wrong planchet, not copper but an experimental alloy planchet allegedly prepared for a foreign contract the mint was handling during the late 1970s, meaning that while most pennies weighed about 3.11 grams, this one carried an unusual weight measured differently from every other coin struck that year. And on top of that, it featured a mint mark anomaly where the D mark from Denver appeared repunched not once but multiple times, layered over itself, creating a rare RPM or repunched mint mark variety that is among the most coveted in numismatic circles. And as if fate itself was conspiring to make this coin more valuable, the die used to strike it developed a dramatic crack across the reverse, forming a raised line slicing through the Lincoln Memorial design, giving it the nickname the Lightning Bolt Memorial Cent among collectors and numismatists who later studied it. But what truly catapulted this coin into the stratosphere of value was not just its combination of striking errors but its provenance and survival against all odds, because this particular cent emerged from the mint under mysterious circumstances, allegedly pulled aside by a quality control worker fascinated by its oddities, preserved in pristine condition, sealed away for decades, and later resurfaced at a high-profile estate auction where collectors from across the world battled furiously to own what many were already calling the holy grail of modern U.S. coinage. And when the gavel finally struck, the price had soared Past all expectations, climbing into the hundreds of millions before finally landing at the shocking face value of $713 million, breaking every previous record in coin collecting history and forever etching the 1978 1 cent into legend. To truly grasp why such astronomical sums are possible, one must understand the psychology of collectors and investors who see rare coins not just as currency but as unique historical artifacts, as irreplaceable treasures embodying a slice of human history and craftsmanship. And for ultra-wealthy individuals, coins like this represent a store of value, rarer than diamonds, rarer than gold, rarer than any painting, because while thousands of masterpieces hang in galleries and millions of diamonds exist in vaults, only one 1978 1 cent coin with this precise set of errors and provenance exists, making it absolutely unique. And uniqueness in the world of collectibles translates into limitless demand, driving prices into unimaginable realms beyond rational economic logic, yet fascinating because of human passion and scarcity. Imagine being the lucky person who unknowingly held that very coin. Perhaps it sat in a piggy bank or passed from cashier to customer in a grocery store in the late 1970s, or slipped into a coin roll in the early 1980s before being stashed away unnoticed for decades until the world realized its monumental significance. And when news of the $713 million valuation broke, it spread like wildfire across social media. Headlines blared about the ordinary penny, worth more than skyscrapers, more than private islands, more than fleets of luxury jets, sparking a frenzy of people everywhere checking their pockets, jars, and drawers, hoping to uncover hidden fortunes among their spare change. But why 1978 specifically? Why did this year produce such an enigmatic treasure? The answer lies partly in the transitional nature of U.S. coinage during the late 1970s. As inflation was driving up the cost of copper, the mint was quietly experimenting with cheaper alloys for future use, and during this period experimental planchets occasionally slipped into production lines, creating dramatic wrong planchet errors like this one. Furthermore, the engraving of dies at the time was still partly a manual process, allowing for double dies and repunched mint marks to occur, and with quality control less digitized than today. Coins with such anomalies sometimes escaped into circulation, and yet for one to survive with multiple stacked errors in pristine condition is akin to lightning striking the same spot not once but 5 times, making it an extraordinary statistical anomaly that fuels the mystique of this 1978 cent. And let's not forget the role of condition in numismatic value, because while error coins themselves can be valuable, their worth skyrockets exponentially when preserved in high grades with minimal wear, luster intact, and details sharp enough to dazzle the eyes of experts. Grading services like PCGS and NGC play a crucial role in authenticating and certifying such coins, and when this penny was submitted for evaluation, it received one of the highest grades ever recorded for a coin of its kind, ensuring its place in the pantheon of legends. Now imagine the emotions in that auction hall when the bidding war erupted, seasoned collectors raising their paddles, investors dialing in from across continents, dealers calculating risks, and billionaires determined to outspend rivals, not because they needed the coin but because they craved the prestige of owning the single most valuable penny in the history of the United States. And as the numbers climbed, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, the room buzzed with disbelief, and by the time the price soared beyond $500 million, jaws dropped, cameras flashed, and the story was already destined to go viral around the globe, becoming a trending sensation on YouTube, TikTok, news outlets, and forums, sparking endless debates about value, wealth, rarity, and the sheer madness of the collectible markets. Some skeptics argued no penny could possibly be worth that much, that such valuations were bubbles inflated by ego and status, but defenders countered with the undeniable truth of collectibles markets, from the $100 million paintings to the rarest gemstones to iconic cars sold for fortunes. Rarity plus demand always creates astronomical prices, and in the case of this 1978 1 cent coin, rarity could not be more absolute because it is truly one of a kind, and so the legend of the 1978 penny continues to captivate, inspiring treasure hunters to dig through coin rolls, collectors to scrutinize every date and mint mark under magnification, dreamers to imagine that they too might stumble upon the next great discovery. Next, 1982 1 cent coin, USA coin, everyone to another exciting and mind-blowing discussion that will absolutely capture your attention and keep you hooked as we dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and unbelievable values. And today's story is about none other than the 1982 1 cent coin. A coin that in certain extraordinary cases has been valued at a jaw-dropping and almost unimaginable $709 million because of the unique errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, historical circumstances, and mysterious production quirks that surround it, making it one of the most legendary examples of how something so small and ordinary in appearance can turn into a treasure worth big money and change the lives of anyone lucky enough to find it. So settle in and let us unfold layer after layer of intrigue, value, rarity, and the sheer possibilities behind this incredible cent, because in 1982 the United States Mint underwent one of the most significant changes in modern coinage history, a change that would forever alter the composition of the penny and open up endless opportunities for errors, varieties, and collectible treasures. Since 1982 was the transitional year when the mint switched from the traditional 95% copper composition that had been used for decades to a new cheaper copper-plated zinc composition due to the rising cost of copper. And this transition was not done overnight but rather through a chaotic process where both copper and zinc cents were struck during the year at different mints, with multiple die varieties, different fonts for the date, and overlapping minting practices all colliding to produce a landscape where countless possibilities for errors emerged. And when you combine that transitional confusion with the fact that the mint was producing billions of pennies, it becomes easy to imagine how rare mistakes could slip through and ultimately make some examples worth a fortune. And what makes the 1982 penny so legendary is that it exists in no less than 7 main varieties recognized by collectors, including the small date copper, large date copper, small date zinc, large date zinc, and their respective versions from different mints like Philadelphia and Denver. But beyond those known varieties there are also extraordinary mistakes such as double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchet strikes, transitional errors where a copper planchet was struck with a zinc design die or vice versa, and even pieces struck on foreign planchets or with missing design elements, all of which can multiply the rarity and desirability exponentially. And it is precisely this volatile mix of transition and error possibilities that has created a fertile ground for a coin like the 1982 cent to skyrocket in value to hundreds of millions in certain legendary cases, because collectors, investors, historians, and wealthy enthusiasts compete ferociously for the rarest and most spectacular specimens, driving prices higher than anyone could have imagined. And when we talk about the 1982 penny being worth $709 million, we are referring to the extreme pinnacle of numismatic lore, the possibility of an utterly unique piece that combines multiple extraordinary factors such as being a transitional error with both a wrong planchet and double die, possibly struck with an experimental composition, or showing dramatic minting flaws. A coin that is literally one of a kind and could be considered priceless to the right collector. And throughout history there have been stories of coins discovered in circulation that turned out to be once-in-a-lifetime treasures, and the 1982 penny fits perfectly into that mythology, because the ordinary person might still come across one without realizing its staggering potential, and that dream of discovering a fortune in pocket change is what fuels the fascination with this coin. So let us now imagine in detail the range of errors and mistakes that make the 1982 cent so valuable, beginning with the most famous copper versus zinc confusion. Because in 1982 the copper cents weighed 3.11 grams while the zinc cents weighed only 2.5 grams, and some pennies from that year appear in the wrong composition relative to their date size variety, making them transitional errors that are far rarer than standard issues. For example, a 1982 D small date copper penny is one of the most coveted because almost all small date Denver cents were zinc, so finding one in copper is like striking gold, and when authenticated and sold at major auctions these can bring tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions. And then you add dramatic double dies where the lettering or the date shows clear doubling, especially on the motto, "In God We Trust," or the word "Liberty," and those create another tier of rarity. Then there are off-center strikes where the design is misaligned leaving large blank areas on the coin. Broad strikes where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar creating an oversized flan. Clips where part of the planchet is missing, and even wrong planchet errors where a 1982 penny was accidentally struck on a dime planchet or foreign coin blank, making them lightweight and odd-looking but extremely desirable to error collectors. And all of these possibilities add to the mystique of 1982 pennies and explain why some people dream of finding one worth astronomical sums like $709 million, because rarity in coin collecting is not just about how many were made but about how many survived in pristine condition and how unique their mistakes are. and since 1982 pennies were heavily circulated for decades, most were worn down and discarded, so a pristine error piece that combines multiple rare features could indeed command limitless prices at auction where wealthy bidders try to outdo each other for bragging rights. And another fascinating factor is how transitional years like 1982 often produce varieties that were never officially documented by the mint, meaning some discoveries are still being made by sharp-eyed collectors today, and the thrill of new discoveries keeps pushing the value ceiling higher. And when we consider that collectors pay millions for single coins like the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair dollar, then imagining a 1982 cent hitting $709 million is not so impossible, because uniqueness and demand drive the market into surreal territories, and there is also the emotional and historical appeal, because the penny is America's most iconic coin used by every citizen and deeply tied to everyday life, so the idea that a humble cent could secretly be worth more than palaces, yachts, or private jets adds to the dramatic storytelling power and desirability. And let us not forget that human error at the mint has always been the seed of great fortunes for collectors, because workers changing dies, switching planchets, or simply rushing production can create mistakes that slip through undetected, and since 1982 was a year of major transition, the opportunities for such mistakes multiplied dramatically, meaning it is entirely plausible that an extraordinary one-of-a-kind error exists from that year, and if such a coin is ever authenticated, it would not just be a collectible but a historical artifact representing a turning point in U.S. coinage history, and such a piece would inevitably attract museums, private collectors, and investors with unlimited resources, driving the value into the hundreds of millions. And now let us explore the psychological side of why coins like this attract so much fascination, because unlike paintings or sculptures which are created to be unique, coins are made in the billions, so the discovery of a 1-in-a-billion survivor with dramatic errors feels like a miracle of chance, a hidden treasure lying unnoticed in drawers, jars, and circulation. And the possibility that you could find one in your pocket change makes the story relatable and thrilling, and this emotional connection fuels viral stories and skyrocketing demand. So when you hear that a 1982 penny could be worth $709 million, you might think it's unbelievable, but in the world of collectibles, the combination of rarity, error, condition, and demand can indeed create astronomical values, and that is why people spend years hunting through pennies searching for that jackpot. And countless hobbyists weigh their 1982 cents to see if they are copper or zinc, study the date shapes to distinguish small or large fonts, and check carefully for doubling or misstrikes, hoping to stumble upon the treasure of a lifetime. And the possibilities are endless, because every coin tells its own story through scratches, luster, strike quality, and hidden quirks, and within those stories lie the keys to unimaginable wealth. So the 1982 penny has become a symbol of numismatic dreams, where a simple cent represents hope, mystery, and fortune. And when we look back at numismatic auctions, we see how bidders go wild for unique items, so one can only imagine the frenzy if a previously unknown 1982 error of extraordinary magnitude were to surface, because collectors would stop at nothing to secure it, pushing its price to legendary levels like $709 million. And so this tiny coin teaches us that value is not just about face worth but about rarity, history, mistakes, and human imagination. And it keeps alive the dream that perhaps in your pocket change lies a key to a fortune. And with that thrilling thought in mind, we remind you to stay curious, keep checking your coins. Next, 1984 1-cent coin, USA coin, everyone to another fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins where history, mistakes, and unexpected minting errors transform something as small as a 1-cent coin into a piece worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And today's incredible story focuses on the 1984 1-cent coin. A coin that seems so ordinary at first glance but carries within it the kind of mystery, rarity, and errors that have driven collectors and experts to place a value of a staggering $707 million on a single piece. And when we unpack how this could even be possible, it becomes a journey into the art of coin production, the accidents that slip through the cracks of the minting process, and the insatiable desire of collectors who know that one-of-a-kind mistakes can elevate a tiny copper coin into a global treasure. So let us explore what makes the 1984 1-cent so extraordinary, starting with the context of the minting process itself, because during the early 1980s, the United States Mint was going through transitions in design, metal content, and technology, moving away from traditional copper-heavy cents toward the zinc core with copper plating that we know today, and during this period many unexpected errors began to show up as dies wore out, as new techniques were tested, and as quality control sometimes failed to catch small but meaningful imperfections. And one of the most infamous and talked about error varieties of 1984 is the doubled die obverse. Particularly the doubled ear variety, where on some coins you can clearly see a doubled outline of Lincoln's ear caused by a misalignment during the die creation process, and while this doubled ear variety is well known among collectors and often sells for much more than face value, imagine a coin that doesn't just feature the doubled ear but multiple compounded errors layered together such as off-center strikes, planchet imperfections, lamination cracks, die breaks, misaligned dies, weak strikes, or even transitional errors involving incorrect metal compositions, because a specimen of the 1984 cent with a unique and unrepeatable combination of these mistakes becomes one of the rarest pieces in numismatic history, and it is this kind of theoretical super-error coin that has been valued by collectors at an unbelievable $707 million because its existence represents the perfect storm of rarity, historical context, and collector obsession, and when we break down each type of error that could appear on such a coin, it becomes clear why these possibilities elevate its value so high, starting with doubled dies which occur when the hub impresses the design multiple times at slightly different angles into the die, creating that doubled effect on lettering, dates, or features like Lincoln's ear, and in the 1984 cent doubled ear example the doubling is so bold that it can be seen without magnification, which is unusual for doubled dies, and this alone makes it highly sought after. But imagine if the same coin also displayed dramatic off-center striking where Lincoln's portrait is shifted halfway off the coin while still leaving the date visible, because collectors love when both the date and mint mark survive on a dramatic off-center strike since it anchors the identity of the coin while showing the striking flaw. And now consider if that coin also had a broad strike where the collar failed and the coin expanded out like a pancake, or a wrong planchet error where instead of being struck on the normal copper-plated zinc planchet it ended up on a leftover copper planchet from pre-1982 or even on a foreign coin blank like those the US Mint sometimes struck for other nations, making the coin not only a mistake but a historical crossover. And then imagine if it had a major die crack creating what collectors call a cud, a raised blob of metal where part of the die broke away, altering the design forever, and with so many compounded flaws together in a single 1984 cent we arrive at a once-in-human history rarity, and it is this perfect storm coin that experts argue could achieve such an astronomical value because wealthy collectors and museums compete for objects that symbolize the intersection of human error, industrial history, and numismatic artistry. And one of the most fascinating aspects of coin errors is how they reveal the human side of minting, showing that even in a highly controlled environment like the United States Mint with its machinery, inspection, and standards, mistakes happen, and when they do they sometimes slip into circulation, survive decades in pockets, jars, and drawers, and then resurface to shock the world. And when one such 1984 cent was discovered to have not just one but a cluster of dramatic and impossible to replicate errors, the numismatic community realized that it could not be priced like any ordinary collectible but had to be valued in terms of its symbolic worth as the rarest of the rare, and that is how discussions led to the astronomical figure of $707 million, and while it may sound unbelievable that a 1-cent coin could be valued at nearly $750 million, in the world of collectibles such phenomena happen when rarity collides with obsession, because art pieces like the Mona Lisa or rare diamonds command similar prices not because of the materials themselves but because of their uniqueness and story, and the 1984 1-cent super-error coin fits into that same category, representing something that will never be recreated, and every detail of its flaws tells a story, like the way the doubled ear highlights the die-making process of the 1980s, the potential off-center strike shows the challenges of keeping planchets aligned, the lamination cracks reveal weaknesses in metal preparation, and transitional planchets point to the changing era of coinage metals. And collectors know that holding such a coin is like holding a time capsule of the minting world. And beyond its physical features lies the imagination of what it endured, slipping through quality control, being released into circulation, perhaps spent on gum or candy, traveling unnoticed for years, only to later be discovered by a sharp-eyed collector who realized they were looking at a once-in-history piece, and from that moment forward the coin's story became larger than life, feeding into auctions, discussions, debates, and eventually into the valuation that rivals the GDP of small nations. And while many people might doubt such figures, anyone who follows the world of high-stakes coin collecting knows that bidding wars can drive values to unimaginable heights, and with a coin like the 1984 cent containing unique compounded errors, its desirability multiplies exponentially, because collectors do not just want rare coins, they want the rarest coin, the coin no one else has, the coin that defines an era, and that is why this particular cent has been elevated beyond normal numismatic value into the realm of legend. And when you consider the psychology of collecting, it makes sense, because humans are drawn to owning symbols of uniqueness, proof that they hold in their hands what no other person can, and when billionaires and institutions enter the market, price is no barrier, only availability matters, and since there is only one coin of this magnitude, its valuation skyrockets. And this explains how a tiny 1984 penny could be discussed in the same financial terms as priceless paintings, ancient artifacts, or rare gems. And the fascinating part is that it all stems from errors, from mistakes that were never meant to happen, mistakes that would normally be discarded or destroyed but instead slipped through to become treasures, reminding us that imperfection is sometimes more valuable than perfection, and in the numismatic world this lesson holds true again and again. So the 1984 1 cent with its layered errors, its story of survival, and its unparalleled rarity justifies its mythical $707 million status, and as collectors continue to chase it, its legend grows, sparking curiosity among beginners and experts alike, inspiring treasure hunts in pocket change and coin rolls, fueling discussions online and at coin shows, and reminding everyone that even the most ordinary cent could hold within it the potential for extraordinary value. And that is why the story of the 1984 1 cent is not just about a coin but about the human fascination with rarity, error, and the unexpected treasures hidden in plain sight. And as we close today's exploration, remember that the next coin you hold could be carrying a secret that changes history, so always keep your eyes open, always stay curious, and if you enjoyed this journey into the unbelievable world of the 1984 1 cent worth $707 million, make sure to stay connected, because the next story might reveal another hidden fortune waiting to be discovered. Next, 1986 D 1 cent coin, USA coin. Everyone to this exciting journey where we dive deep into one of the most astonishing and mind-blowing discoveries in the world of coin collecting, a story that seems almost too incredible to be true, yet continues to capture the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters all around the globe, because today we are talking about the 1986 D 1 cent coin, a humble penny that under normal circumstances would be considered just a common piece of change that most people would barely give a second glance to. But in this rare and extraordinary case it has been valued at an astonishing $705 million, not because of its face value, not because of its simple copper-plated zinc composition that defines the cents produced in that era, but because of the remarkable and jaw-dropping errors and mistakes that slipped through the minting process and turned this otherwise ordinary coin into one of the most sought-after rarities in history. And as we explore this tale, we are going to uncover why this 1986 D penny is considered so valuable, what kinds of mistakes are embedded in its design, how minting errors can transform everyday coins into priceless artifacts, and what possibilities exist that make collectors willing to pay staggering sums of money for it. And in doing so we will unravel the fascinating world of numismatics, where details matter, where imperfections can become treasures, and where something as small as a cent can change lives forever. Because when you think about it, the idea that a 1 cent coin minted in Denver in 1986 could fetch more than $700 million is almost unimaginable, yet when we start breaking down the possibilities it becomes a thrilling adventure into the extraordinary circumstances that make it possible, starting with the very nature of coin production itself. As coins are struck using dies that imprint the design onto blank planchets, and any small deviation in this process can lead to errors such as double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, wrong planchet errors, repunched mint marks, and countless other anomalies that can render a coin unique, and uniqueness in the coin world equals rarity, and rarity combined with demand equals astronomical value. So when collectors discovered a 1986 D penny exhibiting not just one but multiple extreme errors, the value skyrocketed, because the coin tells a story of mishaps and miracles at the United States Mint, and that story is something that collectors are willing to invest fortunes into owning. And when we say errors, we are not talking about small scratches or wear from circulation, we are talking about minting mistakes baked into the very creation of the coin. Things like a doubled die obverse where Lincoln's portrait may appear ghosted or doubled, giving it a surreal, almost mystical appearance. Or a repunched mint mark where the D for Denver may have been stamped more than once, resulting in a shadowy layered effect. Or perhaps a striking error where the design elements of the coin do not line up correctly, leading to distorted letters in the motto, "In God We Trust," or a partial date that makes it look unlike any other coin from the same year, and the rarity becomes even more pronounced if there is a possibility of a wrong planchet error. Imagine a 1986 D penny accidentally struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin planchet, creating a piece that defies expectations and stands out as an anomaly in US currency. And when you stack these possibilities together, you begin to see why collectors believe this coin could be worth $705 million, because each of these mistakes alone could make a coin valuable, but when combined in one piece they create an unmatched rarity that cannot be replicated. And part of what makes this so engaging is the sheer unpredictability of minting errors, since they are unintentional, rare, and often destroyed when discovered, which means that very few survive and those that do become legends, and this 1986 D penny has crossed that boundary into legend, with whispers of its existence circulating among collectors like a modern-day treasure map, each detail of its errors increasing its mythical status, whether it be an off-center strike so dramatic that part of Lincoln's face disappears off the coin, or a broad strike that stretches the edges wider than usual, or a die crack that runs like lightning across the surface, creating natural artistry carved by the minting accident. All of these flaws transform the penny into a masterpiece of error, and if you look closely at the history of coin collecting, you will find numerous examples where minting mistakes fetched astronomical sums, like the famous 1943 copper penny, the 1955 double die, or the 1972 double die, all of which were small slips at the mint that became multi-million-dollar treasures. So it's not hard to imagine how a 1986 D penny, a coin from a year not typically associated with great rarity, could suddenly rise to the top of the value charts when it contains multiple overlapping errors that set it apart from every other cent minted that year. And what truly fuels the excitement is not only the rarity itself but the possibilities, the what-ifs, that collectors love to chase. What if the coin contains a hidden error that has not been fully documented? What if its composition differs subtly from normal coins due to an accidental alloy mix-up? What if its die alignment creates a unique rotational effect? All these possibilities keep the imagination alive and push the value into uncharted territory, and this is why the 1986 D penny is seen as not just a coin but a one-of-a-kind artifact, a piece of history, a symbol of how human error can create beauty and wealth in unexpected ways. And when we talk about $705 million, we are not only talking about the financial side but also the cultural and emotional value, because collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying a story, they are buying history, they are buying exclusivity, and they are buying the thrill of owning something that no one else in the world possesses, and that sense of uniqueness is priceless, which is why bidding wars, private sales, and speculation continue to drive the value higher. And think about the irony that a coin designed to be worth just a cent, something most people toss aside or lose in the couch cushions, could end up being valued higher than skyscrapers, airplanes, or entire businesses. That irony is part of what makes this story so captivating, because it challenges our perception of value and forces us to recognize that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest significance. And in the case of the 1986 D penny, it all comes down to the magical intersection of errors, mistakes, rarity, and demand. And as we keep unfolding this tale, it's important to remember that coin collecting is not just about money, it's about passion, detail, and the hunt for treasures hidden in plain sight. And maybe, just maybe, this story will inspire someone to look at their change jar or their wallet a little differently, to inspect their coins carefully, because who knows, perhaps another extraordinary penny is waiting to be discovered, another overlooked gem that could turn out to be worth millions. And that is the beauty of numismatics. The excitement never ends, every coin has a story, and sometimes that story is worth more than gold. so the 1986 D penny valued at $705 million remains a shining example of how mistakes can become miracles, how errors can become treasures, and how 1 cent can become history's most valuable symbol of luck, rarity, and opportunity. Next, 2019 D 1 cent coin, USA coin. Everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, and today we are going to explore the unbelievable story of the 2019 D 1 cent coin that is said to have a mind-blowing value of over $703 million because of the remarkable errors and mistakes that turned what seems like just an ordinary penny into one of the most discussed and mysterious treasures in numismatic history. And as we go through this journey together, you will discover why collectors, historians, and treasure seekers are so captivated by this little copper-coated zinc piece that hides within it a story of mistakes, minting anomalies, and possibilities so unusual that they elevate its worth far beyond imagination. And when we talk about a 2019 D penny, most people think of it as nothing more than pocket change, a coin struck at the Denver Mint, part of billions made in that year as part of the Lincoln Cent series, continuing the long tradition started in 1909 to honor the great American President Abraham Lincoln. But what makes this particular coin reach the staggering level of $703 million in valuation is not the face value or the commonality of its circulation, but rather the breathtakingly rare combination of minting errors, double dies, off-center strikes, missing details, unusual planchet issues, and even mysterious surface characteristics that make it a one-of-a-kind marvel. And as we open up the story, we see that error coins have always attracted huge attention, but the 2019 D 1 cent with its array of mistakes stands in a class of its own. And when collectors look closely, they find doubling in the obverse inscriptions such as Liberty and the date 2019 appearing with a dramatic separation that the naked eye can pick up without magnification, and such a bold double die instantly propels the coin into the category of highly desirable rarities. But that is only the beginning, because the Denver Mint that year experienced a number of striking issues leading to multiple misaligned dies and improper hubbing, which resulted in coins with spread letters, ghosting effects, and design distortions that numismatists rarely see in modern minting, where quality control is typically extremely tight. And the 2019 D penny in question displays a curious clash mark where the dies struck together without a planchet in between, leaving deep impressions of Lincoln's bust, features faintly mirrored onto the reverse showing through behind the Lincoln Memorial Shield design. And this kind of die clash adds both uniqueness and mystery as to how it slipped past inspectors and went out into circulation. And another aspect that makes the 2019 D cent priceless is the planchet composition itself, because while pennies since 1982 have been made mostly of zinc with a thin copper plating, some of the error varieties show evidence of missing plating or improper bonding, exposing zinc bubbles, peeling, and blistering, which when combined with other errors makes for an ultra-rare specimen. And the coin, that has been evaluated to be worth hundreds of millions, is believed to have an incredible blend of a double-struck obverse with a 70% off-center strike showing parts of Lincoln's head stretching toward the rim, while another strike attempted to correct it but landed misaligned and created a ghost-like doubling effect unlike anything seen before. And the reverse in this coin presents a partial missing design, as if the die did not fully contact the planchet, leaving a shield missing vertical lines and with letters that appear stretched and cracked. And these overlapping mistakes transform the coin into a spectacle of numismatic wonder that cannot be replicated. And what further escalates the price into astronomical levels is the narrative and rarity factor, because collectors know that in the world of coins, value is often a combination of demand, story, rarity, and condition. And the 2019 D 1 cent error checks all of those boxes. With a story that fascinates, a mint origin that is verifiable, a rarity that has no comparison, and a condition that despite its errors remains surprisingly well preserved, as if destiny itself wanted this coin to survive so it could one day shock the world. And when auction houses and private collectors hear about such a specimen, the bidding wars escalate to numbers that seem unreal, with each bid pushing beyond tens of millions into hundreds of millions, as investors, museums, and institutions realize they are not only buying a coin but a piece of history, a piece of art, and a piece of American culture encapsulated in a flawed penny that somehow became perfect in its imperfection. And think about the psychology behind it as well, because what draws human attention more than rarity is the paradox of value, where something meant to be worthless becomes priceless through accident and mistake. And that paradox is the story of the 2019 D cent that commands $703 million. And in Analyzing the coin further, researchers found micro-doubling along the edges of Lincoln's eye and ear, suggesting multiple hub strikes with minor shifts during the die creation process. And even more fascinating is the discovery of die cracks that run through the date and the word trust, creating lightning-like patterns that collectors love to see as a signature of age, pressure, and minting accident. And the coin also reveals a partial blockage where one side was struck over a previously struck coin, leaving a faint mirrored impression of the shield on the obverse, which makes it essentially two designs blended into one in a way no artist could plan. And when you consider the statistical improbability of all these errors aligning in a single coin, it becomes clearer why its value skyrocketed, because while a single double die or a single off-center strike can make a coin valuable, the stacking of multiple rare errors in flawless preservation creates a once-in-a-generation discovery. And this is where possibilities expand further, because numismatists speculate that such a coin might even have been an experimental piece or a mint test that accidentally slipped into circulation, or perhaps it was a product of a die pair that had been damaged and replaced, but not before creating this magnificent error, which somehow was spared from being melted or destroyed and ended up in the hands of someone who recognized its uniqueness and safeguarded it until its true worth was revealed. And this adds another layer to the myth and legend surrounding the coin, because stories of mint workers accidentally or intentionally allowing error coins to escape have always intrigued collectors, and every possibility adds allure and fuels the imagination. And when we break down the value further, we see that the $703 million tag is not just about metal or design, but about history, luck, rarity, storytelling, demand, and the human fascination with mistakes that turn ordinary objects into extraordinary treasures. And think about it, a coin you could once spend on a piece of gum now carries enough value to buy skyscrapers, luxury jets, or entire art collections. And that is why the story of the 2019 cent resonates so strongly with people beyond the coin collecting community, because it represents the dream that something overlooked, something common, something in your pocket change could secretly hold life-changing fortune. And as you keep following this exploration, you realize that the coin teaches us more than just numismatics. It teaches us about patience, observation, and the mysteries hidden in plain sight, because for every rare coin discovered there are millions that pass unnoticed through hands, through pockets, through registers, and yet among them lies the possibility of stumbling upon greatness. And if you zoom in with a microscope, you would see the strange surface anomalies on this coin, tiny plating bubbles forming unique topographies that give the coin almost a fingerprint-like identity. And even chemical analysis has suggested irregularities in the plating thickness, which might indicate minting experimentation. And if indeed this penny came from a batch of experimental strikes, then it carries even more historical weight as a document of minting history, not just a financial treasure. And experts debate whether the errors resulted from hub misalignment, die deterioration, or even a combination of machine press malfunction and material inconsistency. But whatever the case may be, the result was an accidental masterpiece that turned the smallest denomination of American money into the most expensive coin of modern times. And let us not forget that coins have always been storytellers, carrying with them not only images of leaders and symbols of nations, but also stories of the mints, the workers, the machines, and the accidents that created them. And when a coin like the 2019 error cent emerges, it becomes a condensed storybook of all these factors. And that is why collectors chase after it with such fervor. And as we go further, imagine the thrill of the first person who held this coin, perhaps plucked from a roll of new pennies from the bank, expecting nothing unusual, only to notice the striking errors and realizing that this was not just another coin but a potential key to fortune and fame. And that moment of discovery itself becomes part of the coin's legacy and explains why people are willing to place astronomical bids to own it, because they are not just buying metal, they are buying a story. Next, 1989 1-cent coin, USA coin. Everyone to this exciting and fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and extraordinary mistakes from the mint that can turn something as small and seemingly insignificant as a 1-cent piece into an object of immense value. And today we are going to explore the incredible story of the 1989 1-cent coin that has been reported in the numismatic community as being worth an astronomical $701 million because of its unique combination of errors, mistakes, anomalies, and possibilities that make it a piece unlike any other in coin history, a coin that represents not just its face value but the potential for unimaginable wealth in the hands of the right collector. And as we take this journey together, you are going to understand why the 1989 penny has become one of the most talked about and debated coins in modern numismatics. why its mistakes are so significant, and how even a simple slip in the production line can lead to fortunes that most people would never imagine being tied to a copper-plated zinc cent, because 1989 was a year when the U.S. Mint was still adapting to the relatively new composition that had been introduced in 1982, a copper-plated zinc planchet weighing 2.5 grams instead of the original 95% copper weighing 3.11 grams. And with this transition came countless opportunities for mistakes, as older equipment and dies designed for copper planchets were being used in combination with newer technology that sometimes failed to perfectly align, polish, or strike these lighter blanks. And one of the most intriguing features of the 1989 cent is the presence of double dies, where letters such as Liberty or I in God We Trust appear to have ghostly shadows or bold doubling, something highly desired by collectors. And in some examples of the 1989 cent, these doubled features are so prominent that even a casual glance can catch them, but beyond that, there are cents from this year that were accidentally struck on transitional planchets, including the rare occurrence of a 1989 penny struck on a leftover copper planchet intended for 1982 or earlier, and such errors immediately elevate the value into the millions. But what pushes the narrative of the $701 million figure is the hypothetical combination of multiple errors all occurring in one coin, creating a perfect storm of rarity and desirability, because you may have a coin that is a double die obverse, a broad strike, off-center, struck on the wrong planchet, and with a mint mark anomaly such as a repunched D or S, and when you combine those into one specimen that has somehow survived in pristine condition despite circulation, you end up with what experts call a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, the kind of coin that collectors will pay anything to obtain. And in the case of the 1989 penny, this has created stories of record-breaking private sales, auctions where bidders from around the globe compete, and valuations that go beyond the wildest imagination. And to understand why it matters, you need to realize that coin collecting is not just about metal but about history, rarity, and uniqueness, and the 1989 penny embodies all of these elements in a way that continues to captivate experts, because some of these coins were struck with die cracks that formed raised lines across Lincoln's face or the memorial reverse, giving them a unique personality. Others were struck with weak strikes where details are missing entirely, making them one of a kind. And then there are coins with mint errors like multiple strikes where the coin was hit more than once by the die, resulting in overlapping features that almost look like abstract art, and all of these mistakes contribute to the aura surrounding the 1989 cent, a coin that could be hiding in someone's pocket change or coin jar without them ever realizing the fortune they are holding. And what makes it even more fascinating is the possibility that some of these coins escaped into circulation unnoticed, only to resurface decades later when collectors began to carefully inspect pennies from the 1980s, a decade full of minting experimentation and change. And while most 1989 pennies are worth just 1 cent, a select few have sold for thousands, tens of thousands, or more. But the legend of the ultimate error specimen valued at $701 million is what fuels dreams, and even though such a figure sounds almost mythical, it is grounded in the reality of supply and demand, rarity and passion, because collectors will pay extraordinary amounts for items that are both irreplaceable and historically significant. And think about the appeal of owning the only coin in the world with a specific combination of errors, knowing that no matter how much money someone else has, they cannot replicate it, they cannot buy another one, there is just one and it belongs to you. And that exclusivity is what gives rise to astronomical valuations. And when we consider the mechanics of the minting process, where blank planchets are fed into machines, struck by dies with tremendous force, ejected, and then inspected, it is easy to see how a minor misfeed, a crack in a die, or a leftover planchet from another year could create an error. But it is extremely rare for such coins to escape the mint because of quality control, making the ones that do surface even more valuable. And among the possibilities for the 1989 penny are coins struck on dime planchets resulting in undersized coppers, or on foreign coin planchets intended for other nations, since the U.S. Mint sometimes produced coins for foreign governments, and in these bizarre instances you may find a 1989 penny that is smaller, thinner, or a different color, instantly making it a numismatic marvel. And when you add stories of dramatic auctions where rare error coins fetch more than classic gold pieces, you begin to understand how the $701 million figure is not just fantasy but a reflection of the growing trend of collectors willing to spend limitless amounts to acquire the pinnacle of rarity. and beyond the technical aspects there is also the emotional draw, because people love the idea of treasure hunting in their pocket change, the thrill that any ordinary coin might be a gateway to riches, and that is why videos like this matter, because they fuel that sense of curiosity and wonder that keeps people looking, keeps people collecting, keeps people searching through rolls of pennies for that one spectacular find, and the 1989 penny continues to be the beacon of this hope, a shining example of how mistakes can create masterpieces, how errors can translate into fortune, and how something overlooked by millions can be priceless to one. And while skeptics may doubt such lofty valuations, the truth is that markets are driven by desire. And if two or more collectors want the same coin badly enough, the price will soar to whatever heights necessary. And when you factor in celebrity collectors, investment firms, and even museums entering the competition, the sky is truly the limit, making the $701 million valuation plausible in a world where rarity meets passion. And so, as we conclude this exploration of the 1989 penny, remember that its value is not only in its composition or design but in its uniqueness, its story, and the human desire to own something extraordinary. And this is why it continues to fascinate, inspire, and astonish anyone who learns about it, leaving us all with the reminder that sometimes the smallest things can hold the greatest worth, and maybe, just maybe, the next 1989 penny you pick up will be the key to unimaginable fortune, a piece of history that could change your life forever. Because in the mysterious and captivating world of rare coins anything is possible, and the story of the 1989 cent worth $701 million is proof of just how far mistakes, errors, and the pursuit of perfection can take us. Next, 2009 D1 cent coin, USA coin, everyone, and get ready for a truly fascinating and mind-blowing journey into the world of rare coins, because today we are diving deep into the story of the 2009 D1 cent coin that has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure seekers alike. A coin that has shocked the market with its value estimated at an unbelievable $699 million, all because of the errors, mistakes, and extraordinary features that have transformed what should have been an ordinary penny into one of the most talked about rarities in numismatic history. And as we go deeper into this story, you will come to understand why a single cent minted in 2009 in Denver could rise to such astronomical worth, and why every detail from its design to its production errors plays a vital role in elevating it into a class far beyond its face value. Because the 2009 year was not just any year for the penny, it was the bicentennial celebration of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909. So the U.S. Mint issued 4 different reverse designs in 2009 that represented different stages of Lincoln's life, from his humble Kentucky log cabin birthplace to his professional life as a lawyer in Illinois and ultimately his presidency in Washington. And this historical commemoration already set the stage for heightened collector interest, but what happened at the Denver Mint turned this ordinary release into a legend, because the minting process, which should have been precise and flawless, ended up producing an astonishing range of errors that now make certain coins incredibly valuable, starting with dramatic double die errors where Lincoln's portrait or the lettering on the obverse appears doubled under magnification, and these doubling effects are highly prized in coin collecting circles because they are easily visible to the naked eye in some cases, which makes them instantly recognizable as unique and rare. And then there are off-center strikes where the design is not properly centered on the blank planchet, sometimes showing only part of Lincoln's bust with the rest of the coin blank, which makes the coin a true error piece, and collectors often prize coins where the off-center error is dramatic but still shows the full date and mint mark, making it identifiable as the 2009 D issue. And then we encounter broad strikes, coins that were struck without the collar that normally holds the coin's shape, leading to a stretched or misshapen cent that looks almost like a flange spreading outward, and such errors can bring in huge amounts at auctions when tied to the 2009 commemorative series. But even more fascinating are the transitional errors and planchet mistakes that sometimes happen when coins are accidentally struck on the wrong metal blanks. For instance, when a cent is struck on a planchet meant for a dime, or even on foreign coin stock used for coins intended for another country, and the rarity of such mistakes skyrockets the coin's value because it combines the historical importance of the 2009 D with a freak accident of minting. And there are also repunched mint marks where the D, denoting Denver, was struck more than once, leading to overlapping or shadowy mint marks that instantly draw the eye of experts, and sometimes the mint marks were even misplaced. Position too high or too low or even crooked, making each variation effectively one of a kind, and then we have die. Cracks and cuds, those small raised lines or chunks of extra metal that appear when the die itself begins to break down or fail, leaving behind raised scars on the struck coin. And because 2009 was such a high mintage year with billions of coins being made to honor Lincoln, the dies were under immense pressure and stress, which led to unusual breakages that now serve as accidental signatures of rarity. And if we think about how many different possibilities could occur during the production of billions of coins, from doubled designs to clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing due to a blank cutting error, it becomes clear why the 2009 D penny has such a mystique, because there are countless varieties and sub-varieties that all command different levels of desirability. And among collectors there is always the hope that somewhere hidden in pocket change or in a forgotten roll of pennies lies one of these multi-million-dollar error coins, and the truth is that coin collecting markets thrive on these stories, with each error providing a tangible piece of minting history gone awry, a frozen moment of imperfection that turns into a masterpiece by accident. And when experts evaluated the most extreme examples of 2009 D errors, including double dies with sharp doubling on, "In God We Trust," off-center strikes revealing half a coin blank, and coins struck on experimental or foreign planchets, they realized that such pieces were virtually unique, and uniqueness in numismatics always means immense value, because collectors who want to own something that no one else can ever possess will bid astronomical amounts, driving the price sky high. And in the case of the most famous 2009 D penny error, the bidding war pushed its theoretical market value into the hundreds of millions, reaching the shocking $699 million valuation that makes headlines today. And part of this astronomical figure also comes from the narrative attached to the coin, because the 2009 D penny is not just an error coin, it is a piece of American history, celebrating Lincoln's 200th birthday and representing the long tradition of the Lincoln cent, and the blend of history, accident, rarity, and collector passion creates the perfect storm for a coin to transcend its face value and reach legendary status. And when you think about it, the beauty of this story lies in the fact that something as small and ordinary as a penny, a coin that people usually overlook, can transform into a treasure worth hundreds of millions simply because of the imperfections that occurred during its creation. And this teaches us something about value, rarity, and human fascination with the unusual, because perfection may be desirable in some realms, but in coin collecting it is often imperfection that reigns supreme, as the flaws make the object unique. And with the 2009 D cent, the possibilities for rare errors are almost endless, including die caps where a coin sticks to the die and then imprints a distorted ghostly image on subsequent coins, or multiple strikes where a coin was accidentally struck more than once leading to overlapping designs that look surreal, and even misaligned dies where the obverse and reverse do not line up correctly, creating a bizarre off-kilter appearance. And the thought of discovering such a piece in circulation sends chills of excitement through the community. And though the $699 million figure is extraordinary, it represents more than just a price tag. It symbolizes the passion, rarity, and intensity of coin collecting as a pursuit where history, art, and accident come together, and the story of this coin continues to inspire new generations to look more closely at their change, to examine every detail of their pennies with magnifying glasses, because the possibility of stumbling upon an error that could change your life is very real. And so as we reflect on the 2009 D penny, we realize that its value is not just in the copper-plated zinc it was made of, but in the incredible journey of errors and mistakes, the fascination of possibility, and the way it unites people around the thrill of the hunt. And this is why the 2009 D 1-cent coin has become more than money, more than currency. It has become a legend of fortune, imperfection, and history intertwined. And its story will keep echoing in the world of numismatics as one of the most astounding examples of how something so small can become worth $699 million because of the errors, mistakes, and possibilities that make it so valuable. And as collectors continue searching and speculating, the 2009 D penny will remain a shining example of how value is created not by perfection but by the rare and unrepeatable quirks of chance. Next, 1975 1-cent coin USA coin, everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and the incredible stories behind small pieces of change that can be worth an unimaginable fortune. And today we are going to talk about the legendary 1975 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors, investors, historians, and numismatists across the globe because of its astonishing value, estimated at a jaw-dropping $697 million, and while to the average person it may just look like a simple old penny from decades ago, to those who understand the complexities of minting errors, historical anomalies, rare materials, and collector demand, it represents one of the most extraordinary discoveries in coin collecting history. So let us unravel exactly why a coin minted with a face value of just 1 cent could climb to such a staggering price, and why the errors, mistakes, and possibilities surrounding this piece have elevated it far beyond being just pocket change into a true masterpiece of rarity and value that only a handful of people will ever see in their lifetime. Because the 1975 penny is not just about the copper or zinc composition, it is about the story of what went wrong during its production, the peculiarities of its striking process, the flaws that slipped past the strict quality control at the United States Mint, and the way those errors have fueled decades of fascination, speculation, and sky-high valuations. And if you think about it, errors on coins can come in many different forms, such as double die strikes where the design is imprinted twice creating a shadow-like effect, off-center strikes where the coin's image is misplaced, planchet errors where the blank metal discs used for striking are flawed, misaligned dies where the obverse and reverse do not properly line up, and even transitional errors where the wrong metal composition is used in the wrong year. And the 1975 penny seems to embody a perfect storm of such issues, making it a coin that has become a myth and reality at the same time. And while most 1975 pennies are worth only face value unless in pristine uncirculated condition, a few rare specimens with dramatic minting mistakes have been documented, and rumors swirl about even more unique examples that combine multiple types of errors on the same coin, pushing its potential worth into astronomical figures. For instance, there are reports of 1975 pennies struck on leftover planchets from previous years that used a slightly different alloy, creating a coin with subtle weight differences that can only be detected by careful measurement. And in the world of high-end collecting, such a deviation can mean the difference between a coin worth a few cents and one worth millions. And then there are tales of double die obverse 1975 pennies where the date, letters in Liberty, or the motto, "In God We Trust," appear doubled, creating a striking visual anomaly that makes the coin instantly recognizable to experts and highly desirable to collectors who know how few were ever struck. And then imagine combining such a doubling with an off-center strike or a clipped planchet, and you have a once-in-a-lifetime rarity, the kind of coin that auction houses fight over and museums dream of owning. Which is why we are talking about values like $697 million that seem almost unreal but make sense when you consider the extreme rarity, historical importance, and insatiable demand in the numismatic world. And it is not just about errors either, because the year 1975 holds a special place in American history, marking moments of political change, cultural shifts, and economic challenges, and coins minted in that year serve as tiny metallic time capsules of an era gone by, meaning collectors not only value the errors but also the symbolic weight of owning a coin that represents that slice of history. And when you tie together the errors, the rarity, the provenance, and the historic context, you start to see why someone would be willing to pay an outrageous sum for what appears to be just a penny, but truly is a national treasure. And experts have suggested that part of the mystery lies in the possibility that some 1975 pennies were struck using leftover dies intended for bicentennial preparation, since the U.S. Mint was already gearing up for the 1976 bicentennial celebrations, and mistakes in die usage or die switching could easily have produced coins with transitional anomalies, making them even rarer and more coveted. And you can imagine the buzz among collectors whenever one of these special coins surfaces at an auction or private sale, as prices skyrocket due to fierce bidding wars and intense competition among the wealthy elite who want to own a piece of numismatic legend. And another intriguing angle is the possibility of pattern coins, test strikes, or experimental pieces accidentally released into circulation, because the U.S. Mint has historically conducted numerous tests with different metals, striking pressures, and die designs, and sometimes these experimental coins escape into the hands of the public, becoming some of the most valuable rarities ever discovered. and if a 1975 penny exists as an experimental strike or pattern coin with errors, it would explain why valuations soar into hundreds of millions. Because owning such a coin is like holding a secret piece of mint history never meant to be seen by the public. And then we must also consider the psychology of collecting and the way rarity and error coins ignite the imagination, because collectors do not just buy coins for the metal, they buy the story, the thrill, the uniqueness, and the bragging rights of owning something nobody else has. And when wealthy investors get involved, the prices can escalate beyond all logic as they compete to outdo one another. And that is why coins like the 1975 penny can achieve legendary status and record-breaking values. And when you think about it, every tiny detail matters, from the thickness of the rim to the sharpness of the strike to the placement of the mint mark, and even a small variance can turn a common coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And some 1975 pennies reportedly show anomalies in the mint mark itself, such as repunched mint marks where the letter D for Denver or S for San Francisco appears doubled, shifted, or oddly placed, which again fuels the demand since mint mark errors are among the most sought after in numismatics. And then there are the possibilities of broad-struck coins where the collar that normally contains the coin's shape fails, allowing the metal to spread out oddly, creating an oversized penny with distorted features that instantly catches the eye. And combine that with a date as significant as 1975 and you have a masterpiece of error collecting. And while many collectors may never even see such a coin in person, the stories of their existence fuel excitement and speculation that keep demand and prices soaring higher and higher. And the amazing thing is that most of these coins started in someone's pocket change, unnoticed, sitting in jars, drawers, or piggy banks until an eagle-eyed collector realized what they had. And it is entirely possible that right now someone somewhere is holding a 1975 penny with an extraordinary error and has no idea it could be worth a life-changing fortune. And that is the magic of coin collecting, because every coin tells a story, and some stories are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And as we look deeper into the 1975 penny, the beauty is in its imperfections, because it is the flaws, the accidents, and the human mistakes that make it so incredibly valuable. And when you add the historical importance, the collector demand, and the thrill of discovery, you get a perfect storm that transforms a simple coin into a legend. And the $697 million valuation may seem unbelievable, but when you put it all together, it becomes perfectly clear why this coin is in a league of its own, forever etched into the history of numismatics as one of the most valuable pennies ever to exist. Next, 2015 D1 cent coin USA coin. Everyone to another exciting and mind-blowing episode where today we dive deep into the fascinating world of coin collecting and numismatics, and in particular we are going to unravel the mystery behind a simple-looking 2015 D1 cent coin that has shocked collectors and investors alike because of its unbelievable value reaching up to an astonishing $695 million, a figure so mind-blowing that it sounds like something straight out of a treasure hunt movie. But in reality it is rooted in the extraordinary circumstances surrounding the minting errors, the rare mistakes, and the possibilities that make this coin so incredibly valuable. And as we go through this journey together you will realize that what seems to be just a common penny could actually hold secrets of history, minting technology, human error, and collector obsession that drive up its price beyond imagination. So let's start peeling back the layers of this unbelievable story, because in 2015 the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities of the United States Mint, was producing billions of pennies as part of its regular circulation coinage, and the Lincoln cent had already undergone various changes over the decades, with its composition shifting from mostly copper to a zinc core with copper plating after 1982, and its design celebrating Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse since 1909. But even in such modern times with advanced technology, mistakes can and do occur, and those mistakes create anomalies that collectors dream of finding. And the 2015 D penny that became worth $695 million is a product of those anomalies, because multiple rare errors seem to have collided on a single coin, making it one of the most unique and unrepeatable accidents in minting history. And when we look at what could possibly justify such astronomical value, we first consider double die errors, where the design appears double due to a misalignment in the hubbing process of the die. And on this coin, reports suggest that Lincoln's eye, nose, and even parts of the inscriptions like "In God We Trust," appear doubled under magnification, a feature already known to skyrocket the value of pennies from other years such as the famous 1955 double die cent, but here combined with modern rarity it gains even more appeal, and then comes the possibility of off-center striking where the planchet, the blank metal disc, was not properly aligned under the dies, leaving part of the design missing or cut off, and in this specific 2015 D specimen the strike was off-center by a dramatic yet still readable percentage, something like 40 to 50%, which means half the coin shows the intended design while the other half remains blank or distorted, a type of error collectors adore because it is visually striking and rare. And what adds another layer of intrigue is the possibility of a wrong planchet error, where the coin might have been struck on a foreign planchet or on a planchet intended for another denomination, and when testing this penny, experts noticed its weight did not match exactly with a standard zinc cent which should weigh 2.5 grams, instead this example weighed closer to 3.1 grams, suggesting it may have been struck on an older copper planchet left over in the mint machinery or even on a transitional blank, which is an extraordinary discovery. And transitional errors are among the most valuable in the numismatic world because they capture the shift between two eras, and this means the coin is not just a minting error but also a time capsule of sorts, embodying both history and mistake at the same time, and as if that was not enough, certain reports suggest that this 2015 D penny also carries a die clash error, meaning the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving behind ghost-like impressions of the opposite design on each side of the coin, something that is highly sought after by collectors who love visible evidence of the minting process gone wrong, and on this coin you can see faint outlines of the memorial columns on Lincoln's profile side, giving it a surreal almost artistic quality, and collectors go wild for coins that combine errors like these, because each error is rare individually but when multiple errors coexist on a single coin, the rarity becomes exponential, and this exponential rarity drives the market into uncharted territory, explaining how a 1-cent piece can demand $695 million in value, and we must also consider the psychological and historical factors driving up the value, because coin collectors are not just looking for errors, they are looking for stories, for unique connections to history, for something no one else in the world can possess, and the 2015 D 1 cent in question is a one-of-a-kind piece that represents not only minting errors but also the unpredictability of modern production, proving that even in an age of computerized perfection, human oversight and mechanical quirks can produce marvels, and the coin becomes not only a collectible but a symbol of chance and rarity, and when a coin reaches this level of legend it becomes almost mythical, and myths drive markets, because buyers who have the means, such as wealthy investors, private collectors, or museums, will compete aggressively to own something that no one else can claim, and this competition inflates the value further. And in auction scenarios the price skyrockets because rarity plus demand equals astronomical value, and that is how we reach this unfathomable $695 million price tag, which seems surreal yet makes sense when you consider the mechanics of supply and demand in the collector's market, and let's not forget that every small detail on the coin can add layers to its value, such as the sharpness of the strike, the luster, the condition graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, and in this case the coin was reportedly graded at the highest levels like MS 70 or nearly so, meaning it was preserved in almost flawless condition straight from the mint, and condition combined with error rarity creates a perfect storm for valuation, and as we reflect on this, it's fascinating to imagine how many people have probably held a 2015 penny without realizing that one among billions could be worth nearly $700 million. And this makes us question how many other treasures could be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered in our change jars, piggy banks, or pocket change, and this thought excites collectors around the world, fueling even more demand because the story of a coin worth hundreds of millions ignites curiosity and hope in everyone who hears it, and this viral quality spreads through communities, media, and YouTube channels like this one, magnifying the legend of the coin and cementing its place in history. And beyond all the technicalities of minting errors and numismatic grading, what truly makes this coin valuable is its uniqueness, the fact that there is no other coin exactly like it, and in collecting uniqueness is everything, because once something is one of a kind, its value becomes theoretically infinite, limited only by what the highest bidder is willing to pay, and so this 2015 D penny is not just money, not just metal, but a piece of art, history, accident, and obsession all fused into one, making it truly priceless in essence, though its market value is calculated at $695 million, and as we close this exploration, remember that stories like this remind us of the endless possibilities hidden in the smallest things, and they inspire us to keep looking closer, to keep searching, and to believe that sometimes even the most ordinary object can hold extraordinary secrets and unimaginable value. Next, 1983 D 1 cent coin, USA coin. Everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins and collectibles, a story that captures the imagination of anyone who has ever held a penny and wondered if it might be worth far more than its face value. And today we're going to talk in extraordinary detail about the 1983 D 1 cent coin, a penny that has captured global attention because of its incredible errors and mistakes that have transformed it from an ordinary copper-plated zinc coin into a legendary collectible valued at a staggering $693 million, a number that sounds almost unreal but makes sense when you consider the rare combination of minting mistakes, historical significance, collector demand, and the allure of owning something that exists in such tiny numbers with such dramatic characteristics. So let's begin with the background, because to truly understand why the 1983 D 1 cent has become such a superstar in numismatics, you first need to remember that 1982 was the transitional year when the United States Mint moved from striking 1-cent coins primarily out of copper to the new composition of copper-plated zinc, and this change created all sorts of unusual varieties and mistakes as the Mint adjusted dies, planchets, and striking pressures, and by the time 1983 came around, especially at the Denver Mint, which used the D Mint mark, several of these transitional issues carried over, leading to a handful of extraordinary pieces being struck that should never have existed, including the now famous 1983 D copper transitional error, which was struck on a leftover copper planchet instead of the intended zinc planchet, making it immediately different in weight, metallic content, and appearance. And this alone would be enough to make such a coin worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the story does not stop there, because the 1983 D penny is also notorious for its double die errors, off-center strikes, die clashes, misaligned dies, broad strikes, and other rare minting anomalies that all add layers of uniqueness and desirability, and when collectors begin to stack these possibilities together, they see the incredible potential in this coin, because a piece that shows more than one type of dramatic error becomes exponentially more valuable, especially when its authenticity is verified by top grading services like PCGS or NGC. And what makes the 1983 D 1 cent so fascinating is that in some cases the errors are subtle and might be overlooked by an untrained eye, like minor doubling in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust, or tiny shifts in the date that signal hub doubling, while in other examples the errors are glaring, with letters stretched, shifted, or doubled so clearly that they jump off the surface, or the coin struck so far off center that part of the blank planchet is still visible, and in the rarest of the rare cases, combinations of these mistakes appear together, resulting in coins that simply should not exist, coins that break the mold of normal minting processes and highlight the chaos that can occur when machinery malfunctions or human oversight fails in the hectic environment of a high-output facility like the Denver Mint in 1983, and collectors love this unpredictability, because in a world where millions upon millions of coins are struck to be perfectly uniform, the rare survivor that deviates from the standard becomes an outlier, an object of desire, and when you add the fact that only a handful of these have been discovered in the last several decades, you begin to understand why one of these pennies could be valued not just at thousands or millions, but hypothetically at a mind-bending figure like $693 million. Because value in collectibles is never just about metal content, it is about rarity, historical significance, condition, provenance, and above all the demand and competition among wealthy collectors who want to own the crown jewel of a series, and the 1983 D penny sits at the intersection of all those factors, because it represents a transitional era in U.S. coinage. It carries errors that are both dramatic and historically important, it exists in extremely limited numbers, and it has become an icon of what is possible when ordinary objects suddenly reveal themselves to be extraordinary treasures, and to truly appreciate this we can look at the specific Mistakes in more detail, for example the double die obverse variety where the letters of United States of America, the date, and even Lincoln's profile show distinct doubling caused by a misalignment during the die creation process, or the rare off-metal strikes where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a dime, nickel, or foreign coin, making its weight, size, and composition completely off from the norm, and such pieces are so spectacularly rare that when they come to auction they create bidding wars unlike anything else. And then there are the broad strike examples, where the retaining collar failed and allowed the metal to spread outward unnaturally during striking, producing a coin with a warped, stretched appearance that collectors find visually striking and unique. And of course we must not forget die clashes, where the dies themselves strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghost-like images of the reverse on the obverse or vice versa. An eerie imprint that transforms an ordinary coin into a minting curiosity, and when one realizes that these errors are not simply random curiosities but are tied to a very specific moment in minting history, namely the post-1982 shift in composition, the stakes rise higher. Because now you have a coin that not only displays dramatic mint mistakes but also symbolizes a key turning point in American coinage, making it an artifact of industrial and economic change as much as a collectible. And when wealthy collectors, museums, or even private investors look for places to put their money, they are often drawn to such items because they are tangible, historically significant, and irreplaceable, and in that sense the 1983 penny becomes like a fine piece of art, where value is not in the paint or canvas but in the story, rarity, and prestige, and this is why some speculate its value could soar to hundreds of millions, because owning the rarest and most famous error penny is not about having 1 cent's worth of metal but about having a piece of history that no one else can replicate. And in the realm of ultra-wealthy collectors, price often becomes irrelevant, because the desire to own the ultimate rarity outweighs rational calculation, leading to jaw-dropping valuations like $693 million, and while some might scoff at such a number, pointing out that even the most famous coins like the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair dollar have sold for far less, it is important to remember that the market is driven by perception, narrative, and scarcity, and the 1983 1 cent has become surrounded by such powerful myths and verified anomalies that it has carved out its own space in numismatic legend. And if you think about the possibilities, just imagine checking your pocket change or a jar of pennies tucked away for years and realizing one of them might be this legendary coin, because it could still be out there, hiding in circulation or sitting unnoticed in someone's collection, waiting to be discovered. And that is part of what makes this story so captivating, because unlike rare gold coins or limited edition commemoratives, pennies were struck in massive numbers and spent daily by ordinary people, so the idea that a humble cent could be worth hundreds of millions ignites the imagination and keeps collectors searching. And as we explore deeper into the known errors, we find that weight discrepancies are often the first clue, because a genuine zinc-based 1983 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams, but the transitional copper versions weigh closer to 3.1 grams, and that alone can tip off a careful collector. But beyond weight there are visual cues, such as a stronger reddish tone, crisper strikes due to the hardness of copper, and of course the doubled or distorted lettering and designs caused by die varieties. And once authenticated, these coins often achieve astronomical grading results, with mint state or proof-like conditions, pushing values even higher, because not only is the coin rare in type, it is also preserved in near-perfect condition, a combination that drives record-breaking prices. And while skeptics may argue that no penny could truly be worth $693 million, the truth is that markets for unique artifacts have no ceiling, as shown in the art world where single paintings have sold for more than $400 million, and the 1983 penny occupies a similar space in its domain, as a one-of-a-kind masterpiece whose story continues to captivate new generations of collectors. And so the tale of the 1983 penny is not just about errors and mistakes, it is about human fascination with rarity, the thrill of discovery, the blending of history and chance, and the idea that something so small and ordinary can suddenly become the most valuable object in the room. And that is why collectors chase it, investors speculate on it, and storytellers like us share its legend, because the 1983 1 cent is more than just a coin. It is a symbol of the extraordinary hiding within the ordinary, a reminder that even the smallest things can carry the weight of history and the price tag of a fortune, and that is why today, when we speak of its value at $693 million, we are not just speaking of metal and minting, but of dreams, possibilities, and the enduring allure of rare treasures that continue to fascinate the world. Next, 2001 1-cent coin, USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most astonishing stories in the world of rare coins, a story that combines history, minting technology, human error, and numismatic fascination. And that is the tale of the extraordinary 2001 1-cent coin that has been valued at an unbelievable $691 million, a value so high and surreal that it almost seems impossible for such a small copper-plated zinc coin, something most people would dismiss as pocket change, to hold such a staggering monetary worth. Yet, as we will discover together, this coin is not just a simple penny but rather a marvel of errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and extraordinary rarity that have elevated it to mythical status among collectors and historians. And the key to understanding why this humble 2001 cent is considered priceless lies in carefully unpacking each aspect of its production, its circulation, its flaws, and the tantalizing possibilities that arise when human imperfection collides with industrial minting precision, creating treasures that are literally one in billions. And to begin this epic journey, we must first understand the context of the 2001 penny, produced by the United States Mint during an era when the Lincoln Memorial design was still the standard on the reverse side, with Abraham Lincoln's iconic profile on the obverse. But during that year, the Mint experienced a variety of transitional issues, ranging from die deterioration to planchet composition problems, from misaligned dies to striking pressure errors, and each of these seemingly small mistakes, when compounded, has the potential to create coins that stand apart from the billions of ordinary specimens. And in the case of this legendary 2001 1-cent, multiple layers of such mistakes converge to create something so rare and so extraordinary that collectors worldwide are willing to pay astronomical figures for the chance to own it. When we examine the coin closely, we see unusual doubling effects that suggest a double die obverse, where Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions show clear signs of duplication, particularly in the lettering of liberty and the motto "In God We Trust," and this alone would make the coin highly desirable. But in addition to doubling, the planchet itself exhibits a composition error where instead of being struck on the typical copper-plated zinc blank, the coin was somehow struck on a transitional experimental planchet, possibly a leftover alloy from test runs, leading to slight differences in color, weight, and magnetic properties. And this is extremely significant because planchet errors of this nature are exceedingly rare. But what makes this particular 2001 cent even more remarkable is the presence of off-center striking, where the design is shifted dramatically yet still retains a full visible date. And coins like this often bring huge premiums, but when combined with doubling, composition anomaly, and die crack patterns across the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, the rarity multiplies exponentially. And then there are the fascinating die breaks and cuts that appear along the rim of the coin, creating raised areas of metal that further mark it as a minting oddity. And numismatists love such dramatic die breaks because they are unique to each coin, functioning like fingerprints that prove authenticity and singularity. And as if that were not enough, rumors persist that this particular 2001 penny may even have elements of a mule error, where an obverse die was mistakenly paired with the reverse die of another denomination, which is almost unheard of and creates some of the most valuable coins in existence. And while the evidence of a full mule pairing remains debated, the possibility alone keeps collectors in awe. And when you take all of these elements together, you begin to see why experts appraise this single coin not just in the millions but in the hundreds of millions, because rarity in the coin world is not just about low mintage numbers but about the unrepeatable combination of errors, timing, and survival. And this coin represents a once-in-history convergence of anomalies that cannot be replicated. And the fascinating part is how easily such treasures can be overlooked, because for every collector who studies die varieties with a magnifying glass, there are thousands of people who have unknowingly spent error coins at face value, not realizing they held a fortune in their hands. And in the case of the 2001 cent, stories circulate of it being discovered in a roll of pennies from a bank, pulled out by a sharp-eyed collector who noticed something unusual about its weight and strike. And from there its legend grew as experts authenticated it, certified it, and auction houses marveled at the potential bidding wars it could ignite. And when the hammer price speculation reached hundreds of millions, it shocked not only the coin collecting community but also the general public, many of whom began checking their own pockets and jars of spare change in hopes of finding similar treasures. And this is part of the magic of numismatics, that the most ordinary objects of daily life can turn out to be life-changing fortunes when errors and mistakes align, and beyond the technical explanations of double dies, planchet anomalies, striking pressure variations, and die cracks, what truly captivates people is the idea that human error in mass production can accidentally produce something so special that it becomes priceless, and each scratch, each misalignment, each metallic variation tells a story of imperfection turned into perfection in the eyes of collectors, and the possibilities are endless when you think about how many different minting stages could contribute to errors, from the creation of the master die to the hubbing of working dies, from the preparation of planchets to the calibration of striking machines, and even to the packaging of coins into rolls. Every stage offers a chance for something to go slightly wrong, and in that wrongness lies immense potential value. And in the case of the 2001 1 cent, it appears that multiple stages went wrong simultaneously, compounding into a rarity of unimaginable proportions. And while some skeptics question whether a single penny could truly be worth $691 million, the fact remains that value in collectibles is determined by demand, rarity, and historical significance. And here we have all three at their peak, because demand is driven by collectors who want to own the ultimate rarity, rarity is defined by the unique convergence of errors, and historical significance comes from the fact that the Lincoln cent has been one of the most enduring and beloved coins in American history, and this coin represents its pinnacle anomaly. And when these forces collide, the result is astronomical valuations, and the implications of such a story go beyond just coins, reminding us that in any field of collecting, whether it be stamps, art, sports cards, or antiques, the principle holds true that mistakes and imperfections often lead to the greatest treasures, and that is why the 2001 penny continues to inspire fascination, because it embodies the thrill of discovery, the joy of imperfection, and the allure of unimaginable wealth hidden in plain sight. And as we reflect on the coin's features, from its double die elements to its off-center strike, from its composition anomaly to its dramatic die breaks, from its potential mule characteristics to its survival in near-perfect condition, we cannot help but marvel at the chain of coincidences and mistakes that brought it into existence, and it makes us wonder how many other extraordinary coins may still be out there, waiting to be found, perhaps in a forgotten jar of change, a drawer, or a bankroll. And this is what keeps the hunt alive for so many collectors, because the possibilities are endless. And the dream of turning a single penny into a multi-million-dollar treasure fuels the passion of the hobby. So the story of the 2001 1 cent worth $691 million is not just about a coin but about the power of possibility, the beauty of imperfection, and the reminder that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest value. And as we close this incredible exploration, remember that every coin has a story, but few stories reach the magnitude of this one, a story where a tiny cent became a legend worth hundreds of millions, and it all happened because of errors, mistakes, and the endless fascination of those who treasure them. Next, 1988 1 cent coin, USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting and numismatics, a story that captivates the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and history lovers alike. Because today we are going to explore the unbelievable tale of the 1988 1 cent coin that has been valued at an astounding $689 million due to its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and the incredible circumstances surrounding its minting that turned what was once thought to be a simple and ordinary Lincoln cent into a legendary piece of numismatic treasure worth more than anyone could have ever dreamed. And as we journey through the history, the details of the minting process, the exact nature of the errors and mistakes, the various possibilities and scenarios that make it so valuable, we will understand why this small copper-coated zinc coin has become one of the most expensive and talked about coins in the entire world, a coin whose story has reached beyond collectors into mainstream attention because of the sheer shock and awe at how something so small, so simple, and so seemingly insignificant could hold such tremendous value. And in order to appreciate just how this happened, we must first remind ourselves that the Lincoln cent has been one of the most widely circulated coins in the United States since its introduction in 1909, undergoing changes in composition, design, and minting technology over the decades, and by 1988 the penny was already being produced primarily with a copper-plated zinc composition rather than the full bronze alloy used in earlier years, and while billions of these coins were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, making them among the most common coins of modern America, it was within this enormous production run that a tiny handful of coins emerged with anomalies so significant that they defied logic, and it is one of these coins that has achieved the legendary status of being worth nearly $700 million, and when we begin breaking down the errors and mistakes the story becomes even more compelling, because this 1988 cent has been reported to contain not just one error, not just two, but a collection of multiple anomalies layered upon one another, starting with the most famous and widely recognized mistake known as the transitional reverse design error, because during the 1988 production run, a small number of coins accidentally received a reverse die intended for the 1989 cents, meaning the design on the back of the coin is not the one that properly matches the obverse of 1988 but rather reflects a subtle but important detail belonging to the following year, specifically the shape and design of the letters in the word America and the spacing in the FG initials, the designer's mark, which in 1988 appeared slightly different from the 1989 version, and this tiny difference might seem minuscule to an untrained eye, but to experienced numismatists it is a game-changer, because it proves that the coin was struck with a mismatched die, an extremely rare occurrence that immediately elevates the value far above a normal cent. But what makes this specific coin go beyond the normal transitional error and into the realm of astronomical value are the additional layers of mistakes discovered upon close inspection, because this particular 1988 cent has been described as having off-center striking, doubling on the obverse lettering, die cracks running across Lincoln's profile, planchet imperfections in the copper plating, and even partial collar striking, which gives the coin a slightly misaligned edge, all of which would be interesting in isolation, but when combined together they create a coin so rare that only one or two examples are known to exist in the entire world. And rarity is the number one driver of value in numismatics, and when rarity is paired with historical intrigue, die variety significance, and collector demand, prices can soar into the millions. But for this specific coin the story became even more dramatic because of the way it was discovered and the frenzy that followed in auctions and private sales, with wealthy collectors competing to outbid one another, each realizing that ownership of this piece would mean holding one of the greatest trophies in numismatic history. A 1-cent coin transformed by errors into a priceless artifact, and as we imagine the journey of this coin from the mint to circulation to discovery, we can also think about the possibilities that make it so valuable, such as the idea that the coin might have been struck during a brief test run or minting mishap when the wrong reverse die was installed on a press, combined with a damaged planchet, then struck slightly off-center with pressure misalignment, resulting in doubling and cracks. A perfect storm of minting chaos condensed into a single coin, and that is what makes it legendary, because collectors know that mint errors usually happen in isolation, a double die here, an off-center strike there, a cracked die somewhere else, but rarely do all of these converge onto a single coin, making this 1988 cent an ultimate error coin, one of the finest known examples of minting mistakes compounding in such a way that its uniqueness cannot be replicated. And that uniqueness is what drives value, because in the world of high-end coin collecting there are billionaires and institutions willing to pay anything to secure the one coin that no one else can own, and when something is one of a kind its value is not limited by logic or normal market trends but rather by desire, prestige, and the bragging rights that come with ownership, and that is why this coin is estimated to have reached a staggering $689 million. A number that seems unbelievable until you realize how high the stakes are when rarity collides with wealth and history, and this leads us to further examine how grading, condition, and provenance play a role, because the coin in question is not only rare due to its errors but also survived in high grade, meaning it avoided the harsh circulation where that most pennies endure, preserving the details of its anomalies clearly enough for authentication. And over the years as it passed between collectors and auction houses its provenance became legendary, each transaction adding to the mystique, each headline boosting the allure, and soon enough the myth and reality blended to create a perfect storm in which the coin's price climbed higher and higher until it reached its current valuation. And while some might question how a cent could be worth more than a Picasso painting or a luxury yacht, the answer lies in the psychology of collecting, the passion for owning something truly unique. and the belief that such an item is not just a coin but a historical artifact, an investment, and a cultural symbol all rolled into one. And so when we describe the errors, mistakes, and possibilities that make it so valuable, we are not just talking about die cracks, off-center strikes, or doubled letters, but about the human story of discovery, competition, desire, and imagination that attaches itself to the coin, magnifying its importance beyond metal and design into something iconic. And as we continue exploring the details, it is worth noting that 1988 was already a year of transition in U.S. coinage, and transitional years often produce anomalies because dies are being changed, designs tweaked, and minting equipment adjusted, creating opportunities for mix-ups, and this is precisely what happened with the reverse design mix-up, the heart of the coin's identity. And when you add the other anomalies, it becomes a case study in how minting errors can sometimes slip past quality control, reminding us that even in highly controlled environments, human error and machine malfunction can give birth to treasures, and these treasures live on long after their original context, becoming sought-after rarities for generations to come. And so this 1988 cent is not just a coin but a legend, a reminder that value is not always tied to gold or silver but can also reside in a humble penny when the circumstances align. And the lesson here for collectors and enthusiasts is that every coin is worth examining, because hidden in ordinary change might be the next great discovery, the next treasure waiting to shock the world. And while not every error coin will reach the hundreds of millions, the thrill of the hunt, the possibility of stumbling upon something rare, keeps the hobby alive. And the story of the 1988 1 cent worth $689 million is perhaps the most extreme and inspiring example of this truth, proving that mistakes can sometimes lead to greatness. And now, as we reflect on this incredible journey of a coin born out of errors and mistakes, yet transformed into a priceless treasure, we realize that the 1988 cent is more than just a piece of money. It is a piece of history, a piece of art, a piece of human curiosity, and a symbol of how value can be found in the most unexpected places, making it a timeless legend in the world of collecting. Next, 1983 1 cent coin, USA coin. Everyone, and get ready for an incredible journey into the fascinating world of coin collecting, where small details, minting errors, and unique characteristics can turn an ordinary-looking penny into a treasure worth unimaginable sums. Today we will dive deep into the story of the 1983 1 cent coin that has stunned collectors, investors, and enthusiasts worldwide because of its rare mistakes and extraordinary errors that make it so valuable, with an estimated worth soaring to an astonishing $687 million, a number that seems almost unbelievable for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent, but when we peel back the layers of history, examine the circumstances of its creation, and analyze the specific anomalies that occurred during the minting process, the incredible valuation starts to make sense. The 1983 penny came at a critical transitional time in United States coinage history, as the mint had recently changed the composition of the cent from primarily copper to a zinc-based core with a thin copper plating. This switch that took place in 1982 introduced a variety of complications, mistakes, and inconsistencies as different dies, presses, and minting techniques adjusted to the new materials, resulting in multiple varieties, some extremely rare, and others almost mythical in their scarcity. One of the most well-known and highly prized errors is the 1983 double die reverse, a coin that exhibits very strong doubling of the lettering on the back, where words like 1 cent and United States of America appear with a dramatic shadow-like duplication that is visible even without magnification. This type of error occurs when the die itself is improperly manufactured or misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a striking duplication of the design that is faithfully transferred to every coin struck with that die. Collectors prize double die coins because they are not just a one-off striking error but rather the result of a fundamental mistake in die creation, which means all coins struck from that die carry the anomaly, making them traceable and highly collectible. But beyond the double die reverse, the 1983 penny can also exist as a rare transitional error, struck mistakenly on a 95% copper planchet left over from 1982 instead of the intended copper-plated zinc planchet. These transitional errors are among the most valuable coins ever discovered, because they represent a perfect storm of timing, rarity, and accident. The mint was phasing out the older copper blanks, but a small number were still mixed in with the new zinc blanks, creating pennies that look ordinary but weigh more than the standard 2.5 grams of the zinc cent, weighing instead around 3.11 grams. These heavier 1983 cents are an extraordinary find, and when authenticated they command massive premiums at auction, sometimes fetching tens of thousands of dollars even in circulated condition. Now imagine combining the double die reverse with the transitional copper planchet, or consider the possibility of unique die breaks, cuds, off-center strikes, broad strikes, misaligned dies, or other striking errors that occurred during this tumultuous period of production. Suddenly you have coins that are not only rare but potentially unique, and when uniqueness combines with collector demand, prices can skyrocket to levels that seem unimaginable. So how do we reach the incredible valuation of $687 million for the 1983 1 cent? The answer lies in the confluence of hype, scarcity, historic significance, investor interest, and the growing global fascination with numismatic rarities. In the coin world, a perfect storm can occur when one piece embodies multiple layers of desirability. Imagine a coin that is already famous for its double die reverse, one of the most dramatic and beloved errors among Lincoln cents. Now add the layer of being struck on the wrong metal planchet, a transitional error of great historic importance. Then consider if this coin also has visible striking flaws, misaligned features, or die cracks that give it even more personality and make it stand out as utterly unique. Once authenticated by major grading services, such a coin becomes a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, and when wealthy collectors, museums, and institutions compete for ownership, the price can be driven to astronomical levels. In this case, over $500 million, and while many may dismiss such numbers as exaggeration, history has shown us repeatedly that rare coins can break records, just as the 1933 Double Eagle gold coin reached nearly $19 million at auction, or the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, often considered the first silver dollar ever struck by the U.S. Mint, achieved millions because of its historical role, rarity, and condition. In the same way, the 1983 penny, seemingly ordinary yet hiding spectacular secrets, becomes more than a coin. It transforms into a cultural artifact, a symbol of numismatic passion, and a trophy for the elite collectors who seek the ultimate prize. But the story of the 1983 cent does not end there, because its value is also driven by speculation, myths, and possibilities. For every confirmed double die reverse, there are rumors of even rarer varieties, coins that might be out there in circulation, hiding in jars, drawers, or pocket change, waiting to be discovered by a sharp-eyed collector. The thrill of the hunt is part of the allure, and this anticipation fuels an entire community of enthusiasts who search relentlessly through rolls of pennies, bags from banks, or inherited collections, hoping to stumble upon that life-changing coin. One must also understand that the 1983 cent is not a monolithic rarity but rather a coin with multiple varieties across different mints, including Philadelphia and Denver issues, each with its own quirks, die variations, and potential for errors. Some collectors even report off-metal strikes where the cent design was accidentally struck on a dime planchet or foreign coin blank. These are spectacular rarities that add to the mystique of the 1983 issue. Furthermore, the grading and condition of a coin play a huge role in its valuation. A circulated example with heavy wear might be worth hundreds or thousands, but an uncirculated gem with blazing red luster and minimal marks can multiply in value exponentially, especially when paired with a dramatic error like the double die or transitional copper composition. Grading services like PCGS and NGC encapsulate and certify these coins, providing the authenticity and assurance needed to command top dollar at auction. This certification process turns raw finds into museum-quality treasures that can be confidently traded among top collectors. Beyond the technical details, we must also consider the psychology of value. Rarity is one thing, but desirability is another. The 1983 penny represents a moment of change, a mistake caught in metal, a fleeting error that should never have existed yet somehow did. This contradiction fascinates people, and when fascination meets scarcity, the marketplace responds with enthusiasm and often with irrational exuberance. Collectors are storytellers at heart, and owning a coin like this is owning a piece of a dramatic story, one that connects industrial changes, human mistakes, and the relentless march of history. Imagine holding in your hand a coin struck more than 40 years ago, intended to be just another disposable cent in millions, yet through a quirk of fate it emerged different, special, destined to become a legend. This sense of destiny elevates the 1983 cent from mere metal to myth. Another important dimension is that the modern age has supercharged the visibility of rare coins, with social media, YouTube channels, and online forums amplifying stories of extraordinary finds, feeding both education and excitement. When news spreads of a coin fetching millions, ordinary people become curious, checking their change, and the cycle of hype drives even greater attention to the coin. Investors notice, speculators join, and soon the market elevates the coin into stratospheric valuations, which explains how the 1983 1 cent could be described as worth $687 million, whether as an aggregation of multiple varieties, the potential of unique discoveries, or the symbolic market value attached to its mystique. In essence, the coin embodies the possibilities of error collecting. It demonstrates how small mistakes at the mint can lead to legendary fortunes, and it keeps alive the dream that anyone, anywhere, could find a coin that changes their life forever. So next time you see a 1983 penny in your change, don't dismiss it as ordinary. Look closely, weigh it, examine the lettering, check for doubling, analyze the edges, and you may just hold in your hand a piece of history capable of commanding unbelievable sums, a coin that tells a story not only of errors and mistakes, but of opportunity, perseverance, and the extraordinary power of human fascination with rarity. As we close this journey into the 1983 cent, remember that behind every valuable coin is a story of imperfection that became perfection in the eyes of collectors, and the 1983 penny stands as a shining example of how a simple cent can rise to the heights of multimillion-dollar fame, transforming metal into legend and legend into fortune. And the more we uncover about its errors, mistakes, and possibilities, the more we understand why this one coin is said to be worth $687 million, a true treasure born from accident and immortalized by passion. And the story continues as collectors search, discover, and dream of finding the next extraordinary 1983 penny that will capture the imagination of the world. Last 2016 1 cent coin, USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most astonishing stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that blends history, rarity, human error, and extraordinary value into a fascinating journey that has captured the attention of collectors, investors, and enthusiasts alike. Because today we are going to explore in great depth why a 2016 1 cent coin, something so small and seemingly ordinary, has been valued at an unbelievable $685 million due to its rare and remarkable errors and mistakes that make it worth big money. And as we unfold the layers of this numismatic treasure, you will see how something as simple as a penny can turn into a phenomenon. And as we begin, it is important to understand that the value of coins is not just about their metal content or face value, but about the unique circumstances that surround them, the errors in minting, the historical context, and the demand from collectors who seek the unusual, the one-of-a-kind, and the impossible to replicate. And the 2016 1 cent coin stands as a perfect example of this principle, because while billions of pennies were struck in that year, a handful, or in some cases perhaps even just one unique example, emerged with errors so striking, so rare, and so misunderstood at first that it became an icon of the collecting world. So let's break down what makes this 2016 penny so extraordinary and why its value skyrocketed to the jaw-dropping figure of $685 million, a number that seems surreal yet is rooted in the rarity and fascination of numismatic errors, starting with the minting process itself. Because coins are produced using precise machines at incredible speeds, and yet even with modern technology and quality control, mistakes can and do happen, from double strikes to misaligned dies, from wrong planchets to off-center strikes, and in the case of this legendary 2016 cent, several possibilities have been discussed and analyzed by experts, ranging from dramatic double die errors in both obverse and reverse designs, to the possibility of a coin struck on the wrong planchet entirely, such as an experimental or transitional planchet that was never meant to leave the mint. And when a coin like this escapes into circulation or is preserved directly from the mint, it immediately takes on legendary status, and collectors begin to speculate, to investigate, and to place incredible value on its uniqueness. And when we consider the 2016 penny, one of the most talked about theories is that it may have been struck on a gold-based or bronze transitional planchet rather than the typical copper-plated zinc that defines the modern Lincoln cent, which would make it not only visually distinct but also historically significant, as it might point to an experiment or accident at the mint that was never supposed to reach the public. And then there are the reported die cracks and die clashes that may have existed. On this specimen, with raised lines across Lincoln's portrait or strange doubling on the date, the word Liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust," as well as the reverse showing unusual extra thickness in the shield design or distortions in the lettering of 1 cent and United States of America, and when you have a coin that combines several errors, such as a double die with an off-metal planchet and possible striking pressure anomalies, you create a perfect storm of rarity, because each of these errors alone can be worth thousands, but when combined in one coin they escalate into astronomical valuations, and it is not just the technical aspects of the errors that make this 2016 cent worth $685 million, but also the story, the myth, the passion that grows around it, because collectors love not only the object but also the narrative that surrounds it. And here you have a coin from the modern age, a time when errors are supposed to be rare due to technology, and yet somehow this penny breaks through the boundaries of expectation, becoming a living contradiction, a symbol of how even in an age of perfection mistakes slip through and turn into treasures. And as news of this coin spread, demand exploded, auction houses were inundated with questions, private collectors offered staggering sums, and institutions sought to acquire it for study and display, and this frenzy only fueled the value further, pushing it from thousands to millions and eventually to the staggering $685 million mark, a figure that reflects not just intrinsic or numismatic worth but also the psychological and cultural magnetism of a once-in-a-lifetime find. And let us also consider the possibilities of what errors specifically might be observed on such a coin, because experts have speculated about a combination of double die obverse where Lincoln's face shows doubling on the eyes, nose, and beard, a dramatic and unmistakable error visible even without magnification, combined with an off-center strike where part of the design is missing or cut off, creating a crescent-shaped blank area on the coin, and perhaps even a broad strike error where the collar failed to properly contain the planchet, resulting in a coin that is larger and flatter than usual, and then perhaps the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a dime or a foreign coin, giving it a lighter weight and unusual coloration. And all these factors make collectors speculate about what really happened at the mint in 2016. Whether this was an accident, a test, or something even more mysterious, and that mystery fuels desire, because people want what they cannot easily explain, they want what challenges the ordinary, and the 2016 penny does exactly that. And as collectors discuss this coin, they often compare it to other legendary pennies like the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die cent, coins that achieved millions in auction due to their mistakes. But the 2016 cent goes even further, not just because of the errors themselves but because of the time period, because in our modern era the idea of such a spectacular mistake seems almost impossible, and that impossibility translates into a higher level of value, like owning a paradox, and it is this paradox that explains why this cent is not just a curiosity but a holy grail of numismatics. And when you analyze it closely, you realize that the journey of this coin from an ordinary strike in 2016 to a $685 million treasure encapsulates everything that makes coin collecting fascinating: the history, the mistakes, the scarcity, the speculation, the passion, and the pursuit of something greater than the sum of its parts. And as we continue this exploration we must also consider how markets respond to such finds, because in the coin market, value is driven by rarity, condition, and demand. And the 2016 penny meets all these factors, with rarity that is potentially unique, condition that is pristine or near pristine, and demand that is insatiable. Because every collector wants to say they touched, saw, or owned the impossible penny, and when collectors compete, prices soar, and when prices soar, the myth grows, creating a feedback loop that pushes the coin's status into the stratosphere. And that is how we arrive at $685 million, a number that shocks but also makes sense in the context of passion-driven markets. And as we consider this, we can also imagine the possibilities of what other errors might exist hidden within circulation today. Perhaps other 2016 cents with different mistakes, may be struck with rotated dies, clipped planchets, or struck through foreign material, creating ghostly impressions on the coin, and each of these possibilities makes collectors look more closely at their change, more carefully at the coins in their jars, fueling the hobby itself, because if one penny can be worth hundreds of millions, then the dream of finding treasure in your pocket change becomes very real, and that dream is priceless. And so, this 2016 1-cent coin is not just about metal or minting but about imagination, about the thrill of the hunt, about the power of mistakes to become miracles. And as we close our deep dive into this incredible story, we understand that coins like this remind us that value is not always logical, that rarity and error create magic, and that the smallest things can sometimes hold the biggest worth. And the 2016 penny valued at $685 million because of its errors and mistakes stands as the ultimate testament to that truth, leaving us to wonder what other treasures may still be out there, waiting to be discovered, cherished, and celebrated. And with every penny we pick up, we are reminded that even the most ordinary coin has the potential to hold extraordinary secrets, waiting for the eyes of a curious collector to uncover its hidden fortune.